There they all go.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for CDBG Third Thursday for August. As a reminder, we will record this and we will post the recording online. It was just brought to my attention that our July recording is not online. So we will get the July and August Third Thursday recordings online as soon as we can. So today we're going to talk about a few different things. First off, I'm going to go over application updates, where we stand in terms of funding availability. Really happy with how the rolling round process has been going for our community facilities grants. So I'll give an update on all of those programs. Then after that, we're going to talk about a few different program updates. Just so everyone kind of understands the connection here, we sort of represent HUD here at Commerce, and we monitor you all, and in turn, HUD monitors us. Well, it's been a long time since we've really revamped our handbooks to align with best practices in the field for CDBG and documents and forms, as many of the grant administrators know. So over the next couple months, we are going to be looking into some of our documentation, whether it's the handbook, whether it's the surveys, which Jason is going to talk about today, or a few tweaks to our programs just to make sure we're always compliant and following best practices for CDBG throughout the industry or across the country, really. So we'll talk about a couple things today, time extensions, survey updates, and a few other things. But before we do that, let's do an application update. All right. So as you can see, this is the total amount of applications we have received this year per category. We have 9 applications pending right now, reviewed. So of that 38, 9 are currently pending. So of the 29 that we've reviewed, we have awarded 23 applications this year so far. The only category where we haven't received an application yet is youth job training and regional water, actually, those two. So you can go to the next slide. This slide shows funding availability by category. Again, there are 9 applications pending. As you can see in community facilities, large and small, we still have about 3.5 available. Commercial rehab, we have 3 applications pending, but we still have a good amount available. Youth job training, I believe we have 1 application in this month that we'll be reviewing, but still funds available there. Housing rehab, we have 1 application we're reviewing right now, but there's still enough for at least 1 more project. Water and sewer, we're holding off on water and sewer applications until October, as we talked about at our last Third Thursday and the update that we sent out, but we still have that funding available there. I will say in economic development, we're most likely we're reviewing another application currently, so that $750,000 is probably going to be expended very soon. So if you have an economic development idea or project, it might be best for next year. And we still do have the Blueprint to Build funding available. We're in communication with multiple communities. We've received a few pre-applications for Blueprint to Build, just not a full application yet. If your community is interested, eligible and interested, or wants to learn more about Blueprint to Build, of course, reach out to us as soon as possible. But overall, at the bottom there, yeah, we've awarded close to 11.5 million this calendar year, and do still have some funding available. So reach out to us if you have questions. Get your pre-applications in for those categories where it's required. And thanks for all your efforts adjusting to our new schedule this year. All right, so want to talk about a few program updates or things we just want to touch on to make sure we're doing the right thing and following best practices again. So you can go next slide. So I had Jason put together some data for us and to look at time extensions, because we've been granting since I started here probably 2 or 3 years ago. And for people that don't understand, if a contract, a CDBG contract goes past the contract end date, we have to issue a time extension that essentially becomes a continuation of that contract. We try to issue as few time extensions as possible because the more time extensions we issue, it impacts our timely expenditure rate to HUD, which can have a negative impact on how we're viewed here, require us to be monitored more, and things like that. Overall, I will tell people that our timely expenditure rate at the federal level is pretty good, but it's been slipping back a little bit over the last couple of years. I think due to pushing due dates back and also time extensions. During COVID, we pretty much approved time extensions for all different types of projects, no matter what, because there were delays and things of that nature. I just wanted to bring this data up to people, especially grant administrators. Let's really encourage these projects to finish on time, get under construction quickly, get your environmental reviews done. We're going to start probably looking a little bit closer at time extensions as we move into the future. And as you notice, water and sewer projects have more time extensions than others, partially because sometimes we have other funding partners who are involved and maybe there's a delay with them. But typically we really maybe want to see one time extension, maybe two. We really don't want to get too far into 3 and 4 time extensions, which we have with some of our projects, but we do understand some projects are, have special circumstances. So I just wanted to show this data to everyone. A few more stats. We have about 40 projects currently in time extension. Total time extensions to date for open projects, about 60. Most time extensions to open, we probably have, because we only count up to 3 on our tracker, we probably have 2 or 3 that are in their 4th or 5th time extension, actually. And that overall percentage of 35% in a time extension, we're going to keep looking at that number, and I really want it to start going down over the next 6 months to a year, and I expect it to as we close up some of our projects that were started, at the tail end of COVID. Just a quick reminder about time extension policies, timely expenditures. This is what I was talking about earlier. Commerce must meet HUD's federal deadlines to secure our annual funding. More extensions were allowed for COVID for supply chain issues, but granted case by case, like moving forward, it's a case by case basis and should not be assumed that you'll automatically get a time extension. Projects in extension status may be ineligible for new applications. We've had to threshold a few projects this year that we're applying that were either in time extension or about to be in a time extension. So it impacts your community's ability to receive future funding. Like I said, stricter review ahead. 2024 and 25 projects will face greater scrutiny, especially for lengthy time extension requests. Really don't want to be doing any year-long or 6-month time extensions unless we absolutely have to. So unless another funding source is causing delay, projects should move into construction on schedule. Again, contact us on specific projects as these arise, and we'll keep talking about it as well. Okay, another update for some, not really update, but something that's kind of required, or is required for our limited clientele projects. So our childcare projects out there, we probably have about 5 of them, I think, right now. Maybe YJ, or maybe this probably wouldn't apply to YJT, but certainly the childcare and a few other projects. But projects designated as limited clientele, so that means they're not qualifying their project through census or survey data, but based on the clients that are using that program, like children at a childcare being 51% of those slots available to LMI children. So we're going to be updating our closeout language in our handbook and contracts for LMC facility projects like at childcare. We can't have LMC projects closing out in IDIS in our system until the projects are serving 51% LMI and they've met their national objective and are, having students or children in that childcare. So we're developing the processes now. We just want people to be aware that we can monitor those facilities for up to 5 years post award to ensure compliance. We're looking at having grantees who have received those awards, submitting some type of annual intake report demonstrating that the program is compliant following construction. So we didn't just build you the building, we built you the building and you achieved your national objective by serving 51% LMI persons. So we'll continue update it, or like I said, we'll be updating handbooks and updating documentation about this. But if you have a question, or if you have you're an administrator on one of these projects, please reach out to us if you have any concerns. Again, it's about meeting the HUD requirements for limited clientele projects. Traditionally, we didn't do a lot of limited clientele, and we want to make sure we're checking all those boxes for HUD.
All right, that's me now. So let's talk a little bit about construction contracts and environmental reviews. This has been a source of issue this year and only this year for some reason. So I'm not sure exactly what's happening. But you have 6 months from award date. So it is award date, not contract start date. So when you get that letter that says you're awarded, that's your trigger to go ahead and start completing your environmental review. And included in that is your construction drawings and designs. You have 1 year from your contract start date to have that construction contract in place. Hopefully, we don't run into bidding issues where we don't get bids, or the bids that we do get are over the budget or unwilling to accept, where you have to go back out and bid again. That's where we get into timeliness, is being able to get that done in that first year. We give you 6 months from the time of award to complete your environmental review. SHPO, our State Historic Preservation Office, has been a bit of contention for us on getting things done, because they're needing detailed information from the projects in order to make their determination. So drawings, designs, get that stuff done a little bit further than before to allow SHPO to give you a clearance, basically, so that we can move forward. Under contract does not mean that it's just out for bid. It's actually an awarded contract. They're ready to go. So we want to see that trigger at 1 year. The bid extension should not be assumed again. That is not a formal contract amendment like the time extensions at the end for contract end dates. But this is still a precursor to you running into timeliness issues if you are not able to get your project bid in that first year. So we are not, and I think we've told this before, we recognize the delays with SHPO. We've actually had a meeting or a training with SHPO to get everybody kind of on that same page. We understand that there are 2024 projects that are currently being reviewed that are held up because of this situation. We are giving you all a slight pass there, but moving forward for 2025 projects, we do want you to get in front of this, get your paperwork and your design work done early enough to allow that review to be completed and done within that 6 months. All right, and the other big one is going to be commercial rehab. We are doing some updates to this. We're going to do a little bit of on the fly, and we're going to do a little bit of changing next year. Slum and blight designation, which is what most folks use, we have kind of expanded to allow for code violations. And the regulations technically say that they are eliminating specific conditions of blight or decay that are detrimental to public health and safety. So it can't be for just a general interior rehab or business expansion. That's pretty straightforward, but it also comes down to the use that you're going to use that building for moving forward. If it's going to be an office that's not going to be open to the public, correcting code violations for that are going to be a little bit more difficult to demonstrate to HUD that we did that. If you're doing a coffee shop or anything else that's open to the public, that the public can come in and take advantage of goods and services, I think we can make the argument then that that is, those code violations within the building are detrimental to public health and safety. So we're just going to look at that a little closer moving forward. So just want you to know that. On the LMI jobs portion, which most folks do not take advantage of, but there are some advantages and disadvantages, if you will. So the advantage is that you have a much broader eligible rehab activities that can be done under LMI jobs, right? The downside of that is that it does require that public benefit test that is currently set at $35,000 of CDBG funds per job, either created or retained as part of that project. So it's commercial rehab, but it's going to act a lot like our economic development project because it's coming from that same source of fund. So we definitely, again, don't have very many that are doing job creation, but you might, if you have a project that's going to require things that are going to go above and beyond just eliminating those conditions detrimental to public health and safety under slum and blight, you may want to look at trying to create jobs to be able to capture that broader rehab activity. We're going to tighten these rules, and we are going to make sure that these things are not causing problems for us moving forward. We're not going to go back and change things on existing projects, but we are gonna look at ones that we're reviewing and those in the future with maybe a little bit different view. So as always, if you got any questions about commercial rehab, please reach out to me. If you got anything going on currently, or you're talking with folks and we need to go back and maybe look at this, I'd be happy to have that conversation with you.
Yeah, and I do see a spelling error there, sorry, at the bottom. It says DOE violation, that's supposed to say code violations.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we'll up that. It's not like department of anything, it's code violation.
Not department.
And so we'll update that slide before we send it out. Yeah, and before Jason talks about the surveys, does anyone have any questions about anything that Tim and I just talked about? We can also take questions at the end. Okay, all right.
Moving on. So survey tabulation. I've been reviewing a lot of the surveys this year based off of our old tabulation form, which we're comfortable with and we were utilizing. However, because of our obligation to HUD policy, we do have a consultant who's come in and is advising us on some of these processes that we have going. In reviewing our survey tabulation form, we found that we needed to update this process entirely. The good news is the new form will be formula-based for ease of entry, so it's not going to be anything that's going to require more math on your part. There's going to be more math spelled out on the sheet, but it will be formula-based. However, we did learn that when we are challenging census numbers, either through community-wide random sample surveys, when we're saying our community is LMI qualified, the census did not say or did not report our numbers accurately, we need to base those on numbers that are not built out of the census population numbers. So based on that entirely, we need to create a record of estimated total beneficiaries, estimated total population. So this is a much more spelled out process that I will demonstrate on our new form that I'm drafting. So it is going to be based off of estimated denominators rather than those census data information that we usually would put in. Community-wide surveys, we also learned if we do allow those in the future for a particular threshold of population, we do need 100% response rates. So that being said, if we do not get 100% response rate, we need to take those houses that did not respond and factor them into our population regardless. So we have to assume that those houses that did not respond, again, if they're not like if they're a vacancy, we understand that. But if they're not like responding, they're not participating, and we know that they are occupied or residences, we need to factor those in as assuming them being above LMI. So that this form will look at that information, and we can do that math in a bit clearer way for HUD, tracking the average size of families, both LMI and above LMI. And I'll demonstrate what that math looks like with a very comprehensive sample that we have from a recent example that we approved. Households that refuse to participate, again, we just need to presume that those families are above LMI, not count them out of the survey. Again, we're not further, we don't want to just do a community-wide survey and survey until we hit 51%. That's not tolerated anymore. We do need to start cleaning our master lists and assigning unique IDs and going about surveying in a randomized order. So that way we can ensure consistent methodology across all of our processes. So again, if we do allow a community-wide survey for a particular threshold population under 500, we do need to make sure that that reflects what we do with our random sample survey as well. So we're gonna probably do a little bit more training on how to do surveys, talking to our consultant, but also like going forward as a program. HUD does not recommend doing census surveys for anything over 100 people, which is kind of a quite frightening, limitation. But I think if we follow some more rigid standards, we can at least try to be a little bit more rigorous in our application of methodology for surveying. And again, fixing this tab form is going to help document a lot of that as well for us.
And you don't need to do a census-wide or community-wide survey when you're over when you have that many people anyways. It takes up a lot of time, and it takes up a lot of energy. and resources. So really the random sample is the way to go. And as long as we follow the correct methodology, it's statistically valid and we don't have any problems. So there'll probably be a little bit more in-depth training on this in the future, but Jason just wanted to get it in front of people soon.
Yeah. So this is just a screenshot of the form, parts of the form anyways. There's gonna be a part A, part B that flows underneath the tabulation chart. And I'll show you the differences here in a live example. So just framing the prospect of what we're going into. We have a community with 4,496 households that we were quoted from our survey request. So we hold to that quote because that's the community's standard of how many houses are in that community. If we only tally 3,316 responses, we still need to account for the missing houses, which we again refer to as families when we're going through a lot of this formulation. So again, if those responses are not gathered, we still need to include them in our statistics in order to create an accurate record of LMI qualification or non-qualification. We need to assume that those missing cases are above LMI or non-LMI for statistical validity. So let me back out of this and show you my form, and then we'll look at the chat here before we begin the form perhaps. So here's the big form. So just walking through it here, I'll make it a little bit bigger here. I think I wanted to fit everything on the screen here. Whoops, it's not. Okay, maybe I should have clicked on it. Anyways, yeah, just want to make it a little bit bigger. So these are all numbers taken from existing surveys, so don't mind too much about the math. This is again us having reviewed a number of paper surveys and tallied them in our office here. So city of example, nothing in particular. We're not calling anyone out on this process. This is just us updating process as well. So again, we went through the tally, we found the number of above LMI families, and then the formula then spits out what the number of persons would be. And then we found the number of families that are at LMI qualification. And then it spits out, of course, the total beneficiaries there in that column. So this is all formula based. You're just going to put in your tally in this left-hand column. Again, we're no longer, I don't think that we're going to make us break it out across income levels. So much as, you know, the different above like the 30, 50, 80, it's just going to be above 80 or below 80% median income for that area. So we're just going to have those two columns here. We're going to still have those income stratifications, but we don't need to break it out horizontally anymore because we're only required to find what's above and below that median income. And so we'd rather group them together, make the math a little bit easier on you guys. So taking our example again, 4496. So that's what we were quoted when we began. We're looking at the number of families in the service area. So again, this is an estimate provided by the grantee that we approved in our survey tabulation. This is not reflective of number of surveys distributed. This is what we were quoted from that letter. So that being said, we then look at the total number of families interviewed. So in order to find that, we find both our families above and below. And so we see our totals here. So we have 758 and we have 2,558. So you can either put in your own formula or do that math on your own outside of there, but I'm going to put in a formula here. All right. Good. And so what we get is that 3,316 tally that I mentioned before on the previous slide. So again, we look at that tally that we have, the total number of families that are low and moderate income. We've got 2,558. And so then the total number of persons living in the low and moderate income families interviewed. Again, we look at that total beneficiary column for LMI individuals. We say 5,619. I'll explain this math in the right column in a minute. And then the total number of families interviewed in which the income was above the low and moderate income level. We look again at what was above in this left-hand set of columns, 758 number of families. And then, of course, we report the persons living in that family. So again, that broke out for us here, 1967. And so this example is a community-wide survey. Again, you know, these sorts of numbers, we would much rather encourage a random sample survey going forward, just because, again, we're thinking of statistical validity, and we've got now the problem of the number of houses that was quoted us, and then the number of families interviewed just doesn't congruent here. So we have to subtract those from one another to find that value and compensate for those families that we need to now assume that are above LMI for the survey purpose. So doing that, I did some math over here in the right-hand column previously. So again, we took the original response numbers here. So number of families, number of people. And again, we're assuming those are above LMI. So we're adding these factors to our above LMI totals. So we have that 1,180 persons or 1,180 families that we didn't get responses from, again, based off of our citation. And so we would times that by what we're getting as a family or average family size. So down here, when it spits out the formulas, we put in all original information here. The formulas will then work through a series of questions here. So we've got average size of low and moderate households. So again, set this up to be a formula, protective formula. So it's going to give you the average size of low and moderate households. That's people. Average size of non-low and moderate households. That's there again. So this is helping us create our estimates, our total estimates. So when we go up there, we'll explain what those averages are put towards. And then we, of course, are outlining our proportions of families interviewed in low moderate income, and then our proportion of families interviewed with non-low and moderate income. And then finally, the total number of low and moderate income families in the service area. Again, these things will autofill. As you can see, we don't have to do the hard math here. And then it provides the estimate of the total number of non-low and moderate income families in the service area. And then finally, estimate of the total number of low and moderate income persons in the service area, breaking out those family numbers that were based off of estimates. Again, to begin with, we're not using census data because we are trying to challenge the census data. So we need to create a wholly new set of data, which then presumes off of our count why this community is LMI qualified. And then, of course, it breaks down into a total number of persons in the service area based off of those estimates that are put through in formula. So again, it's a series of questions that are going to spit out these numbers, and eventually we take that total number of estimated low and moderate income persons in the area and divide that by our total number of persons in the service area. And then we do get this 74%. But before we call this example true and tried, we see that it's a high number. Again, our HUD percent 46.8, kind of low. They did challenge it. It's great. But 74 seems like an odd turnaround from this. Again, we're thinking of a community-wide survey. So we had those missing 1,180 people. So what we need to do is go back in and find how many persons how many persons those families that we didn't get responses from represent. So in order to do that, we take our pre-existing number of people. Well, actually, our pre-existing number of families. So again, we have 1,180, and we times that by our family average. So we're assuming again that these families are above LMI. So we take our family average from the above LMI column at 2.595 times that 1,180. We get that 3,000 number. And then we, of course, have to add these numbers together in order to create our new total of persons above LMI for the form here itself. So again, I've done the math already, so you don't have to see me embarrassingly use a calculator. But when we re-enter these numbers, again, distributing those missing responses to our above LMI column, what we then get is different math down here. We have this approximately the same average for family size, but again, it's going to create and spit out a different estimate for total number of families and total number of persons. Again, these are all based off of estimates. They're not using the census data because we want to create a data set separate from census in order to challenge it. And then it's going to break out those estimates as further multiplication of factors and we finally get 52% LMI. So again, we saw that there was a significant drop in what the LMI was when we factor in those houses that we did not get responses from into the total survey itself. So we're trying to approximate a total survey of that whole community when we're doing a whole community survey. Now, for a random sample, we're going to already assign that random sample. You're going to go through just like you do with your processes before, and the math will work out. And we know that we already have that sample locked in and secure. We know the number of houses that we are surveying in order to meet that random sample size. But for a whole community survey, it's just a little bit different. We have to go back in and factor in those families that we did not get responses from.
So Jason, so a community doesn't use census population data.
Right.
How do they come up with their estimate? It's based on housing units in their community? Is that what they're gonna use to start a?
Yeah, so initially, when we get a survey request, we're getting the number of houses, residences in that community. So again, it's whatever that number, I've seen, anything from like 602 to this number as well. And then, of course, you're gonna go through, conduct your survey, and you'll tally, and at the end of it, you find out the number of families that you actually received interview responses from. So.
Well, the question, Riley has a question. What
Yeah.
if there are multiple families in one house?
Yeah,
Yeah.
So again, when will the survey updates be updated? Thank you, Riley. We're addressing chat now, sorry. When will the survey updates be implemented? I think we're gonna try to get these out as soon as possible. I'm tabulating surveys that are incoming off of this new tab form, just that way we can start integrating it quickly. But we'll probably make that tab form public very shortly. We've run it through the team a little bit, and people have had chances to check it out. But we will announce when that's up and live, ready for you to use. Until then, if you're in the middle of a survey, just keep conducting it as you were. But going forward, we're going to have to create these new estimated populations in order to actually challenge census data in a true faith effort. Deb, answering some questions in the chat here as well. So will the survey just have above and below, or will it be broken down on the survey between 30, 50, and 80? Right now, we're just going to keep the old survey forms. We may update those, but again, when you tally them, you won't have to worry about that split. So, we can use the old survey forms for a minute, but then once we get those new survey forms up, we will try to reflect what the tabulation form is. That way it's a synchronous, kind of effort of data entry. So we do plan to update on just the above and below the 80% rather than that huge bracketing that we have been doing in the past. The term families is used on the form, not households. So again, we don't have like a great estimate for families in the area. There might be some census data on that I haven't looked at yet. We're supposed to use families for a lot of the HUD census information. What we want to do is create the best sample that we can, the best documentation that we can. Right now, what I can point us to is the number of houses, and then we find out the number of families in those houses. So again, it's going to be our best way of challenging those numbers. We'll see if there's anything available publicly about number of families, but again, if it's census data, we don't necessarily want to use it because we are challenging that census data. So we'll talk with Kathleen a little bit more about how we exactly fixate on the number of families initially. Right now, we are holding fast to the number of houses as being that list from which we, again, conduct our survey. So let's look at number of houses right now, and then we'll translate that to families as best as we can until we find out more information otherwise. If there are multiple families in one house, so again, when we can use that current survey form, which has spaces for multiple families, when we update the form, we'll consider putting multiple families on one form, but it might just be easier to do one form per family going forward. We'll talk that through as a team. But when we do create an updated survey form, we will consider the idea of multiple families because our current survey forms that you guys use regularly in the field do account for at least 2 families, if not more, when you guys are out doing those surveys. But I think just for consistency's sake, it might be better to practice just doing one sheet per family. Although it may not be real in the field, it might be just clearer for our intake, both your intake and our intake going forward, because you might miss some of those tabulations, and we want to make this as smooth of a process and as clear of a process for everyone involved. So we have seen the HUD survey kit, and they do, I think, just one family per sheet. So we're considering that. But if we prefer to have multiple families on one survey sheet, that might be something we want to hear from you guys. Fixing the survey form now might for communities might make 100% survey response easier. Thank you, Keegan. Yeah. So again, we'll look at that and we'll see if we can turn that out quick. Hopefully, within a couple of weeks. I don't think it'll take a ton of revision for that survey form itself. It's just more, are we capturing the correct data? So that way the tabulation corresponds with that survey form.
And we'll look to put a training on the schedule
Yeah.
for the administrators and anyone else who wants to attend about the new survey processes sometime after Labor Day.
Yeah. So again, we'll try to update that survey form so that way communities will have it as soon as possible. But right now, tabulation is where we want to focus a lot and get corrected, and then we'll go back and we'll fix those survey forms here as well. But right now, I think just introducing the idea of the estimated total populations, estimated total beneficiaries is important for us to kind of start creating our more valid records for HUD monitoring and HUD regulation. That's what we're hearing from our consultant as well. So this is not just us, deciding today. But, I think it's a clear system of challenging census numbers because we are not intermingling that census information, and we're not confused on where our source numbers come from.
Yeah. Yeah. So all this process is really just to increase statistical validity of the surveys we make. Right. And you could clearly tell by Jason's example. I won't tell you, what community that is, but
They still passed. Yeah.
they passed,
Yeah.
but it's more accurate. The reflection of that community is more accurate with the updated number from Jason.
And again, that was a whole community-wide survey. With a random sample, you're gonna have a fixed amount of houses or families that you're capturing. So again, the math will be a lot simpler on a random sample survey. But I just want to show you the kind of the biggest baddest example that we could think of, so that way we could understand the concept of including non-responses from a whole community survey.
Yeah, and most likely when we do that training around the form, we'll probably have our consultant join us on that
Yeah.
call and help answer questions as well.
So hopefully that's not intimidating, but when we do turn in our survey responses, I'll be using this new tab form to kind of figure that out. And we'll make this available to you so that way you're not surprised or caught off guard. So that being said, if there's no further questions in the chat, I'll go back to the PowerPoint here. I think we had.
Yeah, does anyone have any more questions about anything we talked about? We have a couple more updates, I think, or just a few more announcements. And again, feel free, if you didn't put a question in during the chat, feel free to email Jason or Tim or any of us directly with specific questions.
So yeah, this new tab form is not invalidating hard data captured in the field. It's just we're building an estimate so that way we can more accurately challenge, have a more valid challenge to the census data if we are challenging that census data. All right.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, just a couple announcements. I think community, go to the next slide. We're having another community impact tour. We just did one in northeastern Kansas, and we've done two this year so far, but we'll be okay.
Some audio issue.
Yeah. We'll be doing another impact tour in October 2025. It will be focused most on Northwest Kansas. I already have a couple of projects in mind that I suggested, but if anyone from Northwest Kansas who has a CDBG project they're proud of is on the call, feel free to go to this link or just type, Kansas Commerce Community Impact Tour in Google, and you can go in and register to be a stop yourself. Typically, we have Matt Godinez, the QPD director there, myself, or potentially someone else, and local news and anyone, just so we can see how proud we are of these projects. So if you're interested, Northwest Kansas, let us know, and we'll continue to have those, I think, quarterly moving forward. And then another reminder for office hours next Monday. We didn't have anyone join us for our last office hours on August 11th, but I know people are busy working on projects. So from 3 to 4 p.m., there's nobody on the call by 3:30. We'll jump off, but 3 p.m. Monday, August 25th. If you have any questions that need answered about any application, current project, closeout, anywhere in the process of CDBG, feel free to jump on that and you can register for that as well. Jason will send these slides out after the call. So, yeah, I think that's it. We have one more question from Crystal. Audio issues in the beginning. Did you mention when the next award announcements will be? So typically our award announcements, we've been pretty consistent for our monthly applications around the first week of September. So in the next 2 weeks, no doubt. But keep those applications coming in, pre-applications. We've had about 50 pre-applications and about 38 full applications. We have 9 pending, so keep the applications coming. We really appreciate the partnership with everyone across the state, and reach out if you have any questions. We're here to help. All right. Thank you, everyone.